Thinner volumes this week, turnover not particularly high. Why is that?
Well, just like you mentioned earlier, you notice it's been a very short week. We've only had 2 days at the beginning of the week and 2 days towards the end of the week with a holiday in between. And that has had a way of affecting in terms of trading within the stock exchange throughout the week.
Okay, KCB's come out with the names of new executives for its growth strategy. When the board approved this plan about a month or so ago, that share rallied significantly. How's it performed today?
Well, if you notice, it's actually been one of the, within the financial sectors, it's been one of the 3 top performers. There's been KCB, Equity Bank, and Cooperative Bank are hitting the highs of about 25. This goes to show that the sentiment has been gladly approved from the market, and they're realizing that yes, by cutting down one on its wage bill, maybe from 22 to about 7 and thereabouts, it goes to show that there's a lot of positive trends going forward.
Kenyan Airways posted an increase in revenue somewhere above 70%. This is very much a darling of the stock exchange, but we know that market conditions are quite challenging, not least competition from low-cost carriers, but rising fuel prices, and in some major airports, increases in airport taxes as well. How's that going to impact on KQ?
Well, they've adopted a very interesting strategy, because if you notice, they've had one of the most rapid route expansions, and especially throughout Africa, which has been one of the lion's share in terms of expansion. Then it has moved towards a bit of it in Europe, and there's been a decline in a bit of the Asian countries. But by notice of the way they're actually acquiring new jets, you notice that one of the jets they've acquired, the Embraer, which now brings it to a total of 7, is to service their African routes, which goes to show that within Africa, they're actually looking at more growth as opposed to expanding outside. Yes, as it is, when you notice with the way they mentioned, they've actually, throughout its history, hit the 3 million mark in terms of passengers that they'll be able to freight. But one of the things that we have to look at is worldwide, the trend has been that air travel has actually gone back up past the post-2008 levels, when there was a lot of issues, there was high cost pricing, and that has actually changed a lot.
Now, Uchumi relisted and trying to get some kind of a pricing for the stock. But so far, it's not doing particularly well. It's lost somewhere between 8 to 9% of its share price.
Well, you have to understand that within Uchumi itself, there were actually 2 major camps. There are those who felt slighted when the company went down, and despite numerous measures to revive Uchumi, there was always a bunch who are ready and waiting for it to be relisted and for them to actually offload their shares, because as I mentioned before, it had left a bitter taste in the mouth. And I guess this is what would be actually noticing, in the sense that yes, there's those who are loyal to the Uchumi brand and those who are loyal to the idea of Uchumi and supportive of it. And then there are those who actually lost out and had been locked for about since 2006 to date, who are now looking at the opportunity to offload and look for other opportunities within the stock market. So I guess that is what so far going forward has been. And then also you have to notice that there's still that cautious investment. Institutional investors want to be sure that they are going to invest in a viable company. And having in mind also the competition on the ground. Nakumatt, which is one of the largest supermarket chains, is no longer a sleeping giant. It's actually proven its worth, and this is something that has to be contended by Uchumi. There's also another supermarket chain called Tuskys, which is actually, these are 2 of the major local supermarket chains. So having that in mind, there's that option that an investor will look at and say, well, as much as I've been loyal to Uchumi, I have to look at the bottom line, which is it a viable investment?
And finally, the good news, though, is that Standard Group has been doing fairly well over the last few weeks. It's one of the top gainers in recent weeks. Why is that?
Well, I guess it has to go with the changes. They moved to a new, everything is centralized. They've been actually, what has happened within that industry is that they are adapting to the new times, because the market has been very competitive. There's the likes of the Citizen Group, the Nation Group, which are actually raising the bar, and Standard is right amongst them with the more state-of-the-art printing presses and what have you. But it also goes to show that once you adapt and become modern and adapt to the times, there's always that element of investors will look at which is a viable way to invest. And as you notice, investors are getting younger and younger and more savvy. And they'll actually move away from the traditional modes of investing where you just looked at the blue chip company, you had a few in your portfolio without having much regard to how the business is run on the ground. But when you notice, like now Standard has one of their local newspapers that is actually very popular amongst young people.
Yeah.
It also goes to show that there is that element of attracting the younger who in essence will be the future of investing.